Welcome to Destiny Awaits, the podcast where you discover how to step into your identity. I'm your host, Andrea John, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey of discovery with you. Each episode will explore profound insights and practical wisdoms drawn from stories, scriptures, and personal experiences. From unlocking your purpose to navigating the path toward your ideal vision, we'll uncover the threads that weave together autonomy, identity, purpose, and vision into the tapestry of your destiny. Together, we'll explore the nature of God and the essence of who you are, unveiling your destiny and igniting the spark of transformation. Whether you're seeking clarity, inspiration, or a roadmap to fulfill your calling, Destiny Awaits is your guide to living a life of purpose, passion, and profound impact. Join me as we embark on this empowering journey. Your destiny awaits, and it's time to unveil its magnificence. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Destiny Awaits podcast. I'm your host, Andrea John, and today we have a super special episode because, as I promised last week, my husband Mike was going to be on for us to talk about the Beatitudes. Now, this was an impromptu conversation, real live, authentic look into conversations that Mike and I have. So we hadn't planned it. I didn't know the direction I wanted to take. So we just started talking. And as we were talking, the direction that we wanted to go kind of surfaced. So you're going to see us build that a little bit. And what we decided to do was to break up the Beatitudes into separate episodes. So today's episode, we go into the first three Beatitudes. We talk about them, we explore them, and you kind of see us discuss it until we figure out exactly how we want to share and formulate these episodes. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Okay, so disclaimer before we get into this discussion. We are in process. So our studio is a work in progress. We are under construction. We're still working on the video and the sound and getting all that stuff done. I really wanted to get this podcast episode out this week, and our schedules just were not jiving. So Mike woke up early this morning and we wound up recording early in the morning, and I did my best to get myself together on time to get into the studio and do what we needed to do. If I was a self-conscious person, I probably wouldn't put the video out there, but it is what it is. And I'm saying this because if you're just listening, then you're totally cool. Yes, the sound could get better, and I do promise that it is going to get better and better. My brother, who's a sound engineer, is going to come out here in a few weeks, and he's going to help us really improve the studio and make it better. So I just want to thank everyone for your support in listening and watching as we have learned and grow. We started with just what we had, and we are looking to improve, and next year it's going to be bigger and better than ever. So I wasn't planning to be recording these episodes. I mentioned that last week. I was going to take a break from the podcast, but the Sermon on the Mount really stood out to me. So consider this series visually and audibly a work in progress, a construction. So I hope that it's not distracting to you, but the content is there. Mike and I are having authentic conversations as we're doing this. So thank you so much for your support throughout this time. It will get better, I promise, but I just wanted to let you know that we recorded this super early. Couldn't get the video quite the way I wanted to, but the sound should be okay, although I do know that it has to improve, guys. Like, I recognize that. But we are working on it. We're giving God our loaves and our fish, and He will multiply and make it grow. We're just partnering with Him and being obedient. So thank you so much for your support. And now, without further ado, here is Mike and I's conversation about the Beatitudes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Destiny Awaits podcast. I am joined with my wonderful husband, Mike.
Hello.
And as promised, today we are going to go over the Sermon on the Mount, but more specifically, the Beatitudes. So last week on the podcast, I actually read the Sermon on the Mount from the Message Bible.
Okay.
And I was very uncomfortable
Why is that?
because I've read the Sermon on the Mount so many times
Right.
and I knew it pretty well. It was in my original books. I have my books here. I didn't even talk about them, but that's okay. And it was so different. The wording was so different from what I was used to.
Yeah.
That it made me very uncomfortable. And I almost wanted to be like, what kind of heresy is this nonsense? But it was a scholar that we recently started following that recommended reading it, because when you're trying to understand the concept and the ideas, reading it in your own language. And I know that the other Bibles like NASB, NIV, things like that, they're in English,
Yeah.
but they're word for word translations. So the idioms, the concepts, the analogies, the metaphors, they're from ancient times,
Yeah.
not our times.
Right.
And I think that became clearer to me when I read the Sermon on the Mount in the Message Bible, because I was so convicted. And I think so part of me was bothered because it was so different. And every time I'd go on my phone and look at one of the conventional translations, I was like, oh, I could see how they translated it that way.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think I was also bothered because I was so convicted.
Yeah.
It was so relatable that I realized how much I need to change. Lots of things. Like I don't remember offhand, but
we should go ahead and read it then, huh?
Yeah, so we'll do the Beatitudes, and I had read it out of the Message. But I think just for context, especially people who are familiar with the Bible, I think I want you to read it in a conventional translation first, so people have the idea of what we're actually reading.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I guess technically the Beatitudes start on verse 3. So I can go ahead and start there. But it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and say all kinds of evil things about you falsely on account of me. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, because your reward is great in heaven, for they persecuted the prophets before you in the same way."
Okay. So before I actually read it in the Message Bible, the way that I have always heard that and taught it is almost like these are things we need to aspire to.
Sure.
Right? Would you say that that's your view of, like, if you want to see the kingdom of heaven or you want to hear God, you need to be poor in spirit. You need to be persecuted. You need to
almost like a cheat sheet for how to be a Christian.
Right.
Like, these are the things that you need to do.
This
is the new rule book.
Yes. Yeah. So I think a lot of people who have experienced, they purposely remain, I'm not going to use the word poor, but they purposely do not achieve financial success, purposely do not live in a nicer home or things like that, have a nice car. I feel
because they want to be poor.
Yes, not poor, but the context of the sermon on of the Beatitudes has always been that, like, just don't gather up things, like these things here on earth don't matter.
Sure.
We need to suffer. Like, in order for you to be like Christ, in order for you to see the kingdom, there must be suffering.
Right.
Now, with
So
that being
again, all
said,
about you suffering, right?
yes.
Your suffering is not important.
Yes, I must suffer because I
Sure.
need to be like Christ. I can't achieve anything. I can't have anything. I must be low. I must be poor in spirit. And
Yes. I agree with that, by the way.
well,
I'm just kidding.
I know that sounds, it kind of is like, that's like an in your face way of saying it.
Right.
But if I'm being honest with myself, that's how I always saw the Beatitudes.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's kind of how it's been taught for a long time.
So
Especially in standard evangelical Christianity.
right.
The big 5, 6, 7
Yep.
main denominations.
So in the and I just think it's the way the conventional translations are written, that is to me a logical way to conclude. Like, it's logical to conclude that based on the translations, the way that they're written, if you don't have any other context or anything like that.
And
Now,
not necessarily wrong either to a certain degree.
yes, to a certain degree.
Right.
So,
We all start
for example,
somewhere.
this whole concept of suffering, I do have to say, as someone who has suffered a lot in my life, I do see how suffering can bring you closer to God.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that that's not the case. I'm
Sure.
just saying that I now have a little bit of a different view based on researching this. It's not something to strive for.
Mm-hmm.
But not only did I read it in the Message Bible, I also started listening to the Bema Discipleship podcast, and they had an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
And then when I went and did further research and looked at what other theologians and scholars said about it, they had the same idea that I heard on Bema. And I just thought that was so interesting. I think it goes to show that in conventional churches, just because I don't have another way to say it, like in, how would you say, like pop culture church, or
Conventional, maybe?
like, yeah, like in traditional church settings,
Yes.
it's not really taught the way that scholars and theologians see it. And these are people who spend their lives studying the scriptures, studying all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yet for some reason in traditional churches, we're not given access to it, and it just made so much sense. So you did a teaching one time. We had a small group out in Fernandina Beach, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And you did a teaching on the Beatitudes, and you tied it back to the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
And your whole teaching on the 10 Commandments and all that is really phenomenal. And we were going to do a podcast on it, and then it just didn't turn out the way I thought it would make sense for everyone. So we have to redo that. We need to reshoot that one.
Yeah.
But I want you to share, are you still able to share that correlation between the Beatitudes and the 10 Commandments? Like, is it something that still fits with where you're at right now?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, briefly, I don't have the 10 Commandments pulled up in front of me right now. But a brief overview, this Beatitudes is written in a direct response to the 10 Commandments. Okay. And I joked about it being a new rule book or a new 10 Commandments,
Right.
and in a reality, it actually is in proper context. If you look at the beginning of it, it's 5:1. It says, "When he saw the crowds, he went up into the mountain and he sat down, and his disciples came to him." Okay, so Moses. So here we have a mountain scene again. Remember, Moses went up onto the mountain,
Mhm.
and he received the 10 Commandments, and then he came down the mountain. Okay, here we have Jesus going up on the mountain, and he sits down. When you sit down in the Jewish world, you're in proper context, you're taking authority. Like, you see verses about how he's seated in heavenly places. That term sitting, seated, those are places of kingship.
Okay.
It says, I'm king, I have the authority, I get to teach on this.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the disciples would come and gather then at that point. Obviously, there could be just a practical thing to it too, being up high where they can all gather. It's not like they had microphones and sound
Right,
systems,
yeah.
right, like today. So, him being up on something where he can sit down and teach everyone. But also, rabbis taught that way too. They would sit and teach.
Yeah, and if anyone were to notice, if you were to pull up a picture, like even do a quick Google search, Sermon on the Mount, and look at all the images, you're gonna see Jesus sitting and everyone else standing.
Yeah.
And I believe even on the I don't know if they portray that on the Chosen,
Hmm.
but it is common to see
They
that.
did portray it, but I don't remember what they did.
I don't remember if Jesus was sitting or
I
not.
also haven't seen Bama's version of um, this, so this will be interesting for you to point that out, what their thoughts were on it. Um, but because Marty has incredible insight on this kind of stuff. But so he goes up, he sits down, he now takes authority,
Hmm.
okay, and now he brings the new Ten Commandments. This is his response to the Ten Commandments.
Okay.
And of course, he starts out, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." And I don't know how far you want me to go with this, but this was now a direct shift from rules to heart.
Okay.
Okay, law and commandments. They had rejected relationship with God. They had told Moses, "Hey, you go up, you get the rules, we'll follow them." First, God was inviting them up,
Right.
and they said, "No, he's scary. You go get the rules, we'll follow." So they rejected relationship, and now they only wanted rules. So Moses went and got the rules and came back. But here they're being invited up on the mount to speak with God, to get the new way of living for themselves. So now it's another invitation for relationship.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. I'm seeing the picture. It
Yeah.
took me a while, but I got there.
Sorry, I'm bad at explaining it.
No, I
Um,
just, okay, I got it.
yeah, so we have that, and this whole thing is, of course, from a Jewish perspective, Exodus again.
Right.
Okay, so when you have, and cut me off when you want to switch
Hmm.
back to what you were wanting to talk about, but when you have 5:3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to them." That's the NET, which I
Hmm.
kind of like. First of all, the word blessed is not a transactional, okay? Not like, "Oh, you did a good thing, here's $1,
Okay.
right? No. Oh, you're a good person, I'm going to give you a blessing.
Hmm.
It's not transactional. It is it's that word blessed um, has a lot of different meanings depending on if you're going Greek or Hebrew. But in Hebrew, one of them is just absolute bliss. Okay,
Okay.
it's the absolute best way to live. It's it gives you way more than you could ever want.
So
Okay,
one of the translations that I've heard for blessed, and it's funny because it's not a translation, but it's almost like here's another word to think of the word blessed because our view, and this could just be me, but like my view of blessed isn't powerful. It's just like it is a little transactional in nature in terms of how I see it.
right?
But the word favor, like when you're
Yeah,
blessed by God, his favor is upon you, it rests on you.
yeah, yeah.
It's not transactional.
No, that's very accurate, and that was kind of the direction I was going, and it actually is power, and
Hmm.
it's His power, His authority, His kingdom, His spirit. Remember, how we're supposed to walk in His spirit,
Right.
be led by His spirit,
Hmm.
be filled with His spirit. That blessed is that spirit.
Okay.
It is that within us now coming out of us. And we're now stepping into it. This is who we are as a people
Right.
when our heart now thinks, walks, and talks this way, right? So it's not it's an inheritance that we receive when we receive Him. So they're sitting there before Jesus. They're receiving His teaching, and He's giving them the keys to the kingdom. For the kingdom of heaven belongs to them.
Hmm.
Okay, this is now your spirit. This is now, it's not your, it's not about you. You're now thinking outward.
Okay.
You're now spending your life, your time, and your focused away from you on what is happening in the world and how you can help those that are struggling, those that are hurting. You're sensitive, you're compassionate about what's happening in the world, and you're taking action, and you're being blessed because of it. You're being filled with his presence, his
Okay.
kingdom, because of it.
So how does that though, like the way you had taught it, it's almost like every you are blessed, every blessed be tied back to one of the
Mm-hmm.
commandments. So can you give an example of that?
Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And
Right.
yours is,
Uh you're blessed when you feel you've lost what is most dear to you.
okay.
Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you. So, like, you can only be embraced by the one when you've lost what's most dear to you,
Wow, that's so different.
right?
So I'm gonna go. I mean, this. So Second Temple Judaism would say. You remember, Jesus is talking to them, and this
Mm-hmm.
Bible is not written to us. It's
Right,
for us, but not to us. So it's written to them, and he's talking to them,
right,
and they're all Jews.
right.
So there has to be. We have to at least put some weight on what they would have thought,
Correct. Yes,
right?
absolutely, 100%.
So blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Okay, so the mourning with them was something that it was a waiting
Mm-hmm.
for Exodus. It was a waiting for restoration.
Okay.
So this is Exodus language again. It was a coming Messiah, a
Mm-hmm.
restoration, and there was a mourning that was done. They had Sukkot. They had all these different. Let me pull up one of them from the Jewish thought. So the mourning, it was a redemption. It was a redemption thing. They, you know, 3 weeks leading up to Tisha B'av, they would go about mourning, and they would do a whole thing, and they had a big festival and all this kind of stuff. And they were waiting, constantly waiting for the return of the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And that mourning was a period of grief, but also wasn't just grief, it was anticipation.
Okay.
It was a hope for future redemption. When someone dies and you mourn, you're mourning their loss, but you're also healing so that you can recover.
Mm-hmm.
It's those who don't mourn the loss of someone who never actually cover.
Yes.
Like, think about people who lose someone and then they just fill up on drugs and alcohol, right?
Yeah, they're not
And
dealing with
they
it. They're not
never deal
grieving.
with it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mourn. They don't go through the process. Therefore, there's no healing and there's no restoration.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the healing and restoration was the returning of the Messiah for Israel. So they got out of Egypt, but now the Messiah was going to come and restore Israel. And so they would wait for that. Okay? But many had stopped waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Many had stopped the mourning,
Okay.
and they hadn't dealt with it. They were ignoring it. They were acting like it was never going to happen. There was no hope for it.
Mm-hmm.
There was no waiting for it, and there was no so in other words, they didn't put any value on it anymore.
Okay.
It would be like we as Christians deciding that we don't have any effect in the world anymore.
Right.
Because we're not supposed to bring the kingdom to earth anymore.
So this is why your teaching on this is so, I love it, and it's been a very long time since I've heard you teach on it because of things like that. Like how when you really understand that mindset of the time and what Jesus was saying and how there was so much depth to the things Jesus was saying, it all makes sense,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's important for people to know that. So obviously, we're big on context and really understanding
Also
what
in the
it's
morning
about.
too, another thing too, while we're on it, is it's a longing for his presence.
Mm-hmm.
It's a praying and an anticipation for his presence. and it's wanting him to do something that only he can do.
Right.
So there's things that we can do with the kingdom. We can be poor in spirit, we can be compassionate, we can take effect in the kingdom. But then there's things that only he can do.
Okay.
And things that we don't have much control over, but we can pray for it. We can yearn for it. We can desire it.
Right.
Right? And so that's something that we have to consider some have gone as far as to say mourn is a bad word. We should put the word wait there. Some have gone that far. Now, I don't agree with that because I don't like changing stuff that much.
Yeah.
But blessed are those who wait, for they will be comforted. In other words, if you go strive on your own or forget the glory of God, forget what he's promised you, forget his future promises.
It's almost like there needs to be a hope, like a suffering with hope in a way. Like a waiting with hope.
Also why I see it as a building block. You've heard me teach it as a building block. You can't have one without the other. Because if you're not poor in spirit first, in other words, if you don't allow yourself to be filled with his presence, less of you, more of him, and then go out and do something with it in the earth, right? It's now who you are. Right. Because you're now compassionate. You're thinking about what needs to be done in the earth. And if you never do that, you'll never reach the place where you're allowing him to move.
Correct. Yes, I can
see that.
You'll
never reach the place where you're allowing his spirit to move within you. Because we're called we're the answer to the world in a sense. Right. We're called to be his ambassadors, his hands, his feet, his mouthpiece. But if we don't do anything with it, right, we fail. So like sitting in church on Sunday and listening to these verses and saying, oh, I just need to be more humble. Man, you just got a very sliver of what it looks like. Right. It's much so deeper. So small you may have missed it. Right. It's way more than that. It's way more than being humble. It's about taking action. Right. There's an action with this. Otherwise, your heart will never be open enough to mourn. Well,
one of the next podcasts, as we're talking about the Sermon on the Mount, actually what you just said triggered a thought, because when Jesus said that he didn't come to demolish the law but fulfill the law, I did learn a little bit of context about what fulfillment and abolishment looked like in the terms of the law. That made me realize it, and you just saying that triggered that thought in me, because it's not just about knowing something, knowing that it's about doing it. Like, you have to go and do it, you have to live it, you have to represent it, it has to be your way of life. So I guess in this sense here, then, in the Message Bible, where it says you're blessed when you've lost what is most dear to you, it's actually...
What was most dear to Israelites?
I don't know.
God. They had lost him.
Did they know they lost him, though?
No, they didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't know they lost him.
But Jesus was pointing out that they'd lost him.
But then I thought it was interesting, because it doesn't say when you've lost who, it says when you've lost what is most dear to you, because then you can be embraced by the one who is most dear to you. So in their case, God was most dear to them, and in mourning him, they would feel his embrace. Like, if I'm going to use the Message Bible.
What they had lost was relationship with him.
Right.
They had figured out the rules. They could do all the sacrifices. They could do all that kind of stuff. But all of it was superficial. Right. And they had lost relationship with God. And Jesus is saying the kingdom of heaven is about relationship with him. And if you get this, you're going to yearn for that relationship. Right. And you're going to mourn that loss of relationship. It's going to become a reality to you.
So in the interest of time, I think what I want to do is contrast the context, the shadowing between the old and the new, and what I learned about the Beatitudes, reading it in the Message Bible, and kind of like a mix of all. So let me just state here that what I learned about the Beatitudes, or not learned, more of a different perspective, a different way to look at it.
From the Message Bible.
No, this was
Oh,
from
okay.
Bema.
Okay.
When you look at the Beatitudes, what they see, and this is some scholars and some theologians, isn't something to strive for. So it's not like I need to become poor in spirit so that I can have the kingdom of God. I don't need to seek mourning. I don't need to seek persecution. This is not something that I'm going to go out and look for, so that it's this is where God is. So when you are poor in spirit, when you've hit rock bottom, God is there and God is with you.
Yeah.
So then in this one with the mourning, when you've lost what's most dear to you, when you are in mourning, you are, God will comfort you. God is there in the midst of that. God is there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's kind of contrast those two as we continue, because I think that understanding the context of what you shared and the shadowing from the Old Testament in terms of the Exodus story, redemption, and all that,
Yeah.
I think that marrying these two together really demonstrates how powerful the Beatitudes are, how deep the Beatitudes are, but also help make it relevant to us.
Yeah. So that's a big challenge, right?
It is a big challenge because
And I think the Message Bible is attempting to try to fix that, trying to
in
help
in
that.
a way, I feel like they're on one end. So I feel like they're on the end of, I want to make this relatable to people and show them how to apply this.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the part of what you said when you mentioned the Bible wasn't written to us. It is for us and it is for our good, but it wasn't to us. We were not the direct audience of these authors. And
Yeah.
the author here is Matthew, and we didn't go I haven't yet done the historical context in terms of author and all that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But taking that into account, I don't okay, so one side here is the Message Bible. It's relatable, it's understandable, I can apply to my life. Then we sometimes have the complete opposite, which is this is scriptural, this is not scriptural, this is contextual, historical context. This is the view of this is what the Jews were thinking, and almost, okay, we're removing ourselves completely out from it, and then it almost can make it unachievable, unattainable, unrelatable. So we have the two. One's all about me, and one has nothing to do with me.
Right. We have to find that
So
middle
we have to
ground,
find
right?
that middle. So
Yeah.
that's, I guess, in our conversation, that's what I want to try to find is the
Okay.
middle.
All
Okay,
right.
so I think with the first two that we've done, we've already done that without blatantly saying it. So in terms of the mourning, it's when you're sad, when you're mourning, God can comfort you, but understand that there was a depth to what Jesus was saying to these people, and the Jews of the time would have understood very much what he was saying when he was using the word mourning. It wasn't just about being sad,
Sure.
it was also about having a hope, and that in that mourning, God was there to comfort,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So,
I mean, so uh, adapting to our time,
uh-huh.
right? Real quickly, poor in spirit. I had a couple notes here.
Mhm.
This is about possibly could be advocating for the marginalized,
Mhm.
right? Practicing humility and leadership.
Mhm.
These are some examples of what it might look like today, right? Acknowledging one's own spiritual or moral shortcomings,
Mhm.
being authentic, things like that. Mourning could be um, engaging in activities that address grief and loss and things like that, but it also could be supporting healthy things, and going out and taking action, maybe victims of violence, like you
Mhm.
have done, helping in natural disasters, working in restorative justice projects,
Right.
about restorative justice instead of punishment, restore.
So that's beautiful that you mentioned that, because my latest book, In His Image, shameless plug, that just launched on Saturday, is all about how we need to know who God is so that we can live our destiny,
Yeah,
because we are created in the image of God, and we can't live with purpose and destiny if we don't know who we are.
right.
So what
Who would have thought mourning is that?
but what but what you're describing just now by giving those examples is almost like, okay, what God is telling us. So historically, I always bring it back to, historically with myself, I've always brought it back to, okay, when I'm reading a scripture, what is this telling me about God?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So even seeing it as, this is telling me that God is with those who are poor in spirit.
Yeah, and we
God,
should be too.
right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And God is with those who are mourning, and God will comfort those who
Yeah,
are
and
mourning.
we should
So
too.
if we are going to reflect the image of God and live in a way that serves our purpose and destiny, then those examples that you just gave are beautiful ways to demonstrate and to align with the Beatitudes.
Otherwise, you will never feel close to God unless you are in a place of peril. And
Right.
you will actually purposely put yourself in a place of peril
Yes. Oh my
just so
gosh.
that you can feel close to God. But actually, what you're supposed to do when you're not in peril is go help someone else who is in peril
Yes.
instead
Okay.
of trying to get back into trouble yourself.
Yes. And we have seen,
By
you
the
and
way, we're going
I.
to apply this directly to persecution later on, too.
Yes, which we have to get to because we've already been at it for a while. But
We
that's,
weren't. We won't do this in one podcast.
no, we're not. I think we're going to have to split it up.
Let's split it up. Let's do
Okay.
three.
So we've known people who
We're
will
not going to jump to there, are
purposely,
we? Okay,
no,
we're going
but
to do it. All
like
right.
they have purposely seek conflict
Yes, yes. Okay, we're
to
going to go there.
we'll just keep it at the front end of the Beatitudes, who purposely seek conflict to accomplish. So even, for example, constantly having financial issues,
Yeah,
constantly finding yourself in a situation where you don't have funds to support yourself and your lifestyle. And this is a very big topic, so this also goes into
yeah.
financial management, not tied to here, but some people subconsciously, and I have seen this with people that I know, they subconsciously keep themselves in that place of
Yeah.
poverty.
I'm not going to go out and do the right thing because I'm going to trust in God.
Right.
I know that sounds stupid, but that's exactly
Like
what they're doing.
subconsciously, that's what's happening. Yes,
Yes.
like you're not purposely doing it. Like people
I'm
don't
not going to
purposely keep
I'm
themselves
not going to
there.
use all of the things that God gave me, such as my brain, my hands, my feet, my abilities,
Right.
or my intelligence, or my relationships, or my
Because
friends.
if God
I'm
really
going
wanted
to,
it for me,
yeah,
it will
He would just
come.
do it for me.
Yes.
I'm not going to actually use any of the things that He gave me to do it,
Right.
which, now that I say it out loud, sounds crazy, but that's exactly what a lot of people do, especially in the
Yes.
Christianity,
Yes.
in the
And I
Christian
think,
world.
like, I can say probably historically, I subconsciously did things to sabotage myself
Yeah, me too.
for that purpose without realizing it. You know, got to
Absolutely.
keep yourself humble, got to keep yourself low, got to, but it's also a misunderstanding of humility and being low and what that means. Like,
Yeah.
what does it mean to be a servant? It doesn't mean you're never going to grow into a place of leadership. It means learning how to be a servant as a leader, and learning that being a leader is being a
Did you know that
servant.
you can be very, very humble and be brimming with confidence?
Yes.
They seem opposite, right?
Not to me anymore, but it is, there are people who are confident. So there's a difference between being confident and being arrogant.
Yeah, arrogance isn't good.
Arrogance isn't good and it shows pride, but you
Yeah.
can be humble and be confident at the same time. I think one of the people in our lives that I've most learned this through is Alicia,
Yeah.
because Alicia is very humble
Yes.
but extremely confident,
Yes.
and sometimes so funny and uncomfortably confident that it's like you shouldn't say that out loud. And it may, it's kind of like, well, why can't, if I think something
Yeah.
that's a good thing, why can't I say it? Because it's going to make someone else uncomfortable. Now, there's nuance to that,
So
but
read this on that note. Read 3.
so the third one,
The blessed are the meek one.
you're blessed when you're content with just who you are, no more, no less. That's the moment you find yourselves proud owners of everything that can't be bought.
Right. I said the third one, but chapter 5, verse 5. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's the third
five,
one.
believe it or not.
Yeah.
Isn't
Blessed
it
are the
so
meek,
different?
for they will inherit the earth. Is my version.
And mine says, so let's do the meek part. So basically, their description of what it means to be meek is you're content with just who you are, no more, no less. What is meek?
Yeah, that's crazy.
What is being meek?
That's
Let's look
so
up the definition.
obviously
Where's my phone?
blessed are the meek. That won't work.
I'm
That
gonna
won't
look
work.
it
I
up
promise
anyway.
you, whenever you look up definitions of words, it almost never works when you're looking at proper context, but it does work sometimes. So, I was making some notes on this at like 3 in the morning because I was awake. So, the world is driven by power and aggression,
Yes.
okay?
Okay.
And, but you need, I'm telling you, Donald Trump is a perfect example of this.
We are not going there. I am going to take that out because I am not going politics at all.
He is a very aggressive, powerful person.
You're gonna go there.
But if
You're
he,
gonna insist. Right.
okay,
Do we really?
but you take that same aggression, you take that same authority, you take that same ability,
Mm-hmm.
and you apply it in a non-violent way. You promote deals.
Mm-hmm.
You are you work on promoting resolving conflict instead. You work on not being violent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, choosing to forgive. I'm talking about applying it now in our terms,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not looking at Jewish perspective. Our terms, choosing to forgive um, over revenge because you're the powerful person, you're the strength,
Right.
you're the pillar.
So again, now we're building, right? Like
Yeah,
your concept of building. We've talked about strength and confidence,
yeah.
and
But
now
now
we're
we're
going
going.
into meek.
Yeah, meek is like
Oh.
meek is you're so powerful as an individual that you don't need to resort to darkness to get what you need.
Okay. So.
It's like a quiet strength.
Okay. So the
And
the
you're also cunning, you're smart. You know how to get it done without destroying people.
okay. So now the Message Bible makes more sense to me with this whole stacking business, and I'll tell you why in a second, but I did look
To
up the definition.
stacking, what she means by that is a teaching that I talk about where you each one of these blesseds,
Mhm.
right? One goes the order in which Jesus taught it is very important
Right.
because you'll never accomplish one if you don't accomplish
Right.
the
So
one before.
poor
You
in
must
spirit
start with
first,
poor.
mourning,
Yes, it
and then
builds.
now we're at the meek, right?
Yes, it's a building block.
So meek. Oh my gosh. See, this is why I love your teaching so much, cuz it like all the things get ticked in my brain. Oh, it makes so much sense. Okay, so the definition of meek, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is quiet, gentle, and easily imposed. Okay, so quiet and gentle is, I feel like, is how I would see meek, right?
Yes.
But when
They
you're
also
at the,
carry a lot of trust. They trust in their God.
Mhm.
They have waited on him, right?
There's
They
compassion.
believe in
Okay,
him.
the whole stacking thing. This is what I was thinking before. Okay, so you're poor in spirit. In our language, you're at
Yeah,
the
you're
end of your
humble.
rope. You've gone through it. You're mourning. You've lost something. You're hoping, but you're mourning. There's some sadness there. Those things
You're
bring.
trusting.
One of those things what that brings, experiencing those things brings compassion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I have to say that, like, after the last year, when I went through the whole cancer thing, one of the things that it gave me was more compassion.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, so when I was about to have surgery, we had found out that a very dear friend of ours had lost her baby. Like,
Yes.
I think she was 3 months old at the time.
Right.
That was devastating. And just looking to try and comfort her, realizing I don't have words, there's nothing I can do, I just need to be there for her. Seeing her go through that gave me compassion. And then me going through my walk gave me compassion. And it's because I realized that I don't understand and I don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. We can try and help someone who's going through something, but if you've never gone through that thing, you really don't know.
Yeah.
And we need to have compassion. Sometimes people react in ways that we don't like. They may be a little, a little harsh in an area, or maybe one day they give you an attitude, or they, whatever. And we don't know. Maybe they just had a really bad day. Maybe they just found out they had cancer. Maybe they
Yeah.
just found out that, someone they love has passed
Their
away.
husband left them, their wife
Right?
left them,
Or at work they're just
lost their job.
experiencing, yeah, like all this stuff. And it really teaches you to have compassion. Learn how to tone it down a little bit. Like, I'm a very passionate person.
Yeah.
And learning how to, like, tone it down sometimes,
Yeah.
like, I may look at someone and say, I know exactly what you need, I know the exact advice you need, I know, like, sometimes you want to be harsh with, like, what is wrong with you, like, what is not getting through to you.
Yeah.
But sometimes, with Anna, that's something I've had to learn, is take a step back. And she doesn't respond well to yelling or to aggressiveness.
No, not at all.
Even though she is, which is funny, but that's a topic for another day. So, but learning how to, like, okay, take it back. And I need to be calm. I need to be gentle. I need to be compassionate. And what I need to do is really understand, where are you coming from? Why is this happening? What is occurring to help you?
Yeah.
And then in that, in terms of how to apply it, how do I mirror Jesus? Well, Jesus wasn't, there were moments where Jesus was harsh and Jesus was, like, really direct in your face, but Jesus was always caring, and he was meek. He wasn't pompous.
Yeah.
He was not arrogant.
No.
Right? Everything came from this place of love and compassion.
The meekest people I've ever met were not the weakest people I ever met.
Correct. Yes.
We
There's
in
a
America
lot of strength.
see meek and weak as the same.
Right.
But true meekness is people who carry great strength.
Yes.
Their ability to endure, wait, trusting God to have his way. Like, when I think about meekness, I think about my dad, right?
Yes.
Like, we don't agree on everything, but, like, when it comes to his ability to just go, I trust in the Lord, I trust in the Holy Spirit, I'm not going to go and strive and make it happen on my own. Right? Sometimes I felt like growing up he took it way too far. Like, he should have actually stepped up and smacked someone. Right? And I still kind of think that way, but he never changed.
Right.
And he, to this day, has remained true to his meekness.
Right. And he is very gentle.
But he was not. Yeah. The man was not weak. In order to do that, he had to carry much more strength than I did.
Yes.
Because it wasn't strong enough not to go punch people in the face.
Well, that goes back to the fruit of the Spirit called self-control.
Yeah.
Meek people,
for the sake of this conversation, I didn't actually punch anyone in the face.
Right. But we understand. I think every single person at some point in their life has wanted to punch somebody in the face. And you don't do it because that's not the appropriate thing to do.
No.
And then when people do it, we just think they're not nice people.
But I had that example before me.
Yeah.
And so I was able to then emulate that.
Right.
To a certain degree.
The appropriate response is not violence. It's not aggression. I just think that when we do get aggressive, when that's kind of where, let's say something happens and we lean towards aggression.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been there, like really bad. The reality is that our brains actually stop functioning at optimal levels when that happens because of the hormones that's being released. The best thing you can do is recognize, okay, like when I'm having one of those moments, I am 100% aware that I should not be making any major decisions in my life at that time.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of get it out, say whatever you have to say in the privacy of comfort and safety, right?
Yeah.
And then, but we're not going to act that out. We're not going to do that. God would not do that.
Yeah.
And we're going to treat people with respect. And I think meekness comes into play. I will say that I wouldn't necessarily use the word meek to describe myself, but I
Nobody's ever said Mike was meek.
no, I would not use meek at all to describe. Now your dad, I would actually. Now that you say that, your dad's a great example of what meekness looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But I am someone who I try my best. I don't always accomplish that, and there are people who don't like me very much, and they probably have different opinions, but I try my best to be kind, to be compassionate, to be nice, right? Like I worry about other people all the time, and have been meek in moments where I could have been aggressive.
Yeah.
And that at times is
you
viewed.
And I both have in large areas of our life. We won't get into it in this podcast, but we've had to make decisions
right
that were we
yes,
had to.
We chose to take that road.
They did not come easily. Right. We wanted to fight. We wanted to lash out. We wanted to take action. But in the end, we felt this was the right way to go, right or wrong. This was a decision we made. And I think we had examples in our lives that allowed us to do that.
True. And it's often viewed by other people either as weakness, like you mentioned, or they're hiding something, or they know they're in the wrong.
They know they're in the wrong.
Yeah. And it's like, no.
But see, then again, it takes great strength to follow your convictions.
Yes.
Knowing you're not in the wrong.
Listen, knowing that people believe lies about you and letting them takes substantial amount of strength.
Yes, it does.
And I think that that's why when people ask me things like, how is your faith so strong? You know, despite all, I've just had a lot of practice. Yeah. Like I have had years of practice of knowing people believe lies about me and just letting it happen.
Well, also
not defending
you went through,
myself.
And this is well known, you went through a tremendous amount of abuse, you know, struggles, attacks, cancer.
Right.
And, you know, I went through all kinds of crazy stuff too, and we came out the other side.
Right.
But if we didn't have a poor in spirit, if we didn't go and mourn, right? If we didn't have trust and faith, we didn't carry meekness, there would be no inheritance. I think we do have an inheritance because of it. I think anyone who follows these keys in the Beatitudes, and I think when I began to really understand the Beatitudes was right at the beginning where I faced some of the greatest conflict in my life.
Right.
And these Beatitudes helped me get through that troubled time.
Right.
Because I decided I wanted to live out what I was seeing here.
Right. So I think, we'll close on this one, but I think tying it all together, you were someone who basically lost your entire community. You lost your family and you lost your community.
Right.
And that's a story all on its own. We could literally do a podcast series just on your story, and we can call it Cult Boy. But that was completely and utterly devastating to you.
Right.
And it had an impact on your walk, on your faith, on all this stuff. But like you said, you know, at some point, right, you wound up finding God in all that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an easy road, it was difficult, but you definitely experienced, in the words of the message, like the end of the rope. You found the bottom of the barrel, like
Absolutely.
you were in a pit, it was dark. And with the mourning thing, I think taking the context that you shared and tying it back to the Old Testament stories and the Israelites, I think the one thing that I want to point out to everyone is there is a place for mourning, and mourning is important, but when it's not paired with hope and the hope of restoration.
Yeah, because it's the first stage. The word mourn,
Mhm.
rock bottom is the first stage of
Yeah.
that. But it's not where you want to stay.
Yes, because if there's no hope of I'm going to leave Egypt, there is a promised land for me.
Exactly.
There is something
There
better
you
for
go, getting
me.
the right Jewish
God
perspective. Love it.
wants this. That's what God wants for me. God wants me in the
Yes.
promised land. God is guiding me to the promised land. God is making a way to the promised land. And think about that story. God parted the Red Sea. God gave them manna. Like that was God's heart for them all
Yeah.
along. And
This is all Exodus language.
God used a man to free them, right?
Yep.
And they went and God led them, but there was that hope. What I want to say to those listening today is it is okay, like if we're going to take this in a way that it applies to us now, right? And taking it from the perspective of that I learned from Bema, this is God will meet you where you're at. God is for the what Marty calls the mumser. God is for the underdog. God is for those who are ignored. He's not just for the rich, famous, and wealthy.
Right.
He's for the the regular person, for the ordinary person, for the down and trodden, for those who are suffering. What I want to say is that is completely understandable. There are moments where my analogy that I use all the time is you're going to fall in a pit. It's going to be dark, it's going to be scary, you're going to cry, you're going to yell, you're going to scream. But there must be that hope that you will get out. You will not stay there because God doesn't want to. But more importantly, what I will say is there is a place for mourning. There is a place for grieving. And as we mentioned, grieving is important in order for you to walk out of the mourning. The important thing that I want you to know is when you are poor in spirit, when you are suffering, when you are having the control to be meek, you have to see God there. And the reason I use the word have is because I know that He is there. I know that He is in that dark place because He is for you always. He is always with you. You need to turn your attention there. You need to perceive it. Stop looking at what has happened that's bad. Stop focusing on the evil that's happening. Stop looking back to Egypt. And start looking to the one who is guiding you into the promised land. Start looking at the one who has been giving you manna every single day. Start looking at those red threads of God's love in your life. That little kid who gave you a smile while you were in the grocery store for no reason, just looked at you and their smile just looked so angelic. It made your day. It made your heart smile. That's God shining in your life, bringing you hope. That's God bringing a cat to your door that you never wanted, never thought you'd need, but just
another thing I'll have to clarify in a moment.
Yeah, so like it's these little things that God is in, and if we only look at the darkness, you don't perceive it. But the only way you can be meek and compassionate and giving and really live your purpose and walk into your destiny is if you take everyone's poor in spirit at some time. Everyone is mourns at some point. Nobody is void of those things. This world is filled with sadness and evil, not because God wants it. It's just the way it is.
There's two things I want to say real quickly before we wrap. Two points of clarification. Bema is a podcast that does incredible work with understanding scripture through Jewish
Yeah, I
perspectives.
recommend them. BEMA.
And that's when we mentioned Bema or Marty. That's what we're talking about. Not to confuse you. The cat is a cat that adopted us, just so you know.
Showed
Um,
up at our door, loved us so much.
but I want to read this verse because it ties in so perfectly. 4:16, what you were just saying. The people who sit in darkness have seen a great light, and on those who sit in the region in the shadow of death, a light has dawned.
Where is this?
And from that time, Jesus began to preach the message, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Matthew 4:16
Yes.
through 17. So the if you've I'm going to take this out of context, but if you've spent a lot of time in darkness, you're able to see the light.
Mm-hmm.
When the light comes, you see it.
Right.
When that light dawns, when that light comes over, it becomes alive. It becomes a reality to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that light that allowed the kingdom of heaven to come near. And that's why he ties these poor in spirit into the kingdom of heaven and see God and be shown mercy and all of these keys, right? It all ties together.
Yep.
And we'll go on the next podcast. We'll hit on the rest of them, right?
Yeah, we'll go on. There's just so much with this, and I don't think that there's deep and most people don't have access to deep enough teaching. So I just like bringing in all these perspectives because then
Yeah.
it makes it relatable to people. So what I'd say is read the Beatitudes. It starts Matthew 5:3 in different translations. Write your notes, and like after this podcast, I would suggest take a moment to write, like just maybe go in your notes in your phone or something. And what stood out to you the most about what we talked about today? Like, what thing hit you? What revelation did you have about what we talked about? And it may not be anything that we said, but something we said triggered something in you. And then how can you live that out? And how does that how does that bring you closer to God?
Yeah.
Because that's the important thing. And then two, how can you live that out in your own life? How does that change your life? Because the scriptures isn't just about reading and knowing it, it's about becoming it and living it.
Yeah, in the next few verses, it's going to point to us how that happens. It's an automatic. It's a byproduct.
Right. Yep.
Because that very next one, the hunger and thirst.
Yes.
You'll never hunger and thirst unless you get these first three.
Right. Yep.
You never will.
Yeah.
You'll never
because you think
you'll
you'll
never be hungry.
You'll think you're
You'll
full.
never be thirsty.
Yep.
It'll
Yep.
never happen.
Yep.
This is a building block that allows you to finally
Yep.
hunger and thirst for
So
righteousness. Why do I struggle? Why do I always want to do all these things that aren't right? Why do I have this problem? Why do I have that problem?
Yeah.
Why? You ask all these questions.
Mm-hmm.
There's an answer.
Right.
And we're going to get into it next time.
And so Bema, when they talked about this, Marty believes that it's possible. He hasn't where I heard this, that the Beatitudes could be a chiasm
Of the Ten Commandments?
Of just the literary element. So there seems to be a pattern.
Oh, a chiasm.
And what he doesn't know,
it's the center of...
Is it a sandwich? Or does it go from the inside out? Is the middle point, which is the hunger and thirst, the main focus? And it sandwiches that?
Mm.
So we won't get into chiasms now, but like next week we'll maybe we can like briefly talk about what a chiasm is.
Or is it the center of a giant chiasm? Because it's, being...
It's the beginning of the sermon. It's the beginning of the sermon. But yeah, so I would recommend listening to the Bema podcast. We're going to start, Jesus House is thinking about starting a Bible study. We may leverage Bema. We don't know. It's BEMA, Discipleship with Marty Solomon and Brent Billings. I would suggest they have hundreds of episodes. Start with episode 1. It will change your life. But we're going to they're going to revamp it and then start with Genesis again with some new things that they've learned. So we may do that ourselves, and maybe we'll bring the podcast into it. I'm not sure, but we'll do a live Bible study. Maybe that's the plan, but I don't know. But yeah, so that's it for now. I encourage you to read the Sermon on the Mount, read it over again, read it in different translations. As you see, the Message Bible is very different, and it lacks in some areas, but also brings fullness in other areas. And this is why I'm a huge proponent for different translations. I do like some more than others, but they all have kind of like, there's a plus to all of them.
That's right.
So dismissing them all is not, in my opinion, just you lose it. You lose something.
And for the record, I usually smile more, but it's early in the morning.
Yeah, we decided to do this early because we're very, very busy, and I really wanted to get this out. So Mike appeased me this morning.
I'm not always this serious, okay?
No, he's not. But yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Listen, if you get something out of what we go over on this podcast, if you have a revelation that we didn't mention, or like, you guys talked about all this stuff yet you didn't mention this, like we do that with Marty sometimes on Bema, like, how about this? Like, why are you not even addressing this?
Oh, there's stuff Marty teaches that I want to throw my phone at him, like,
and not me. So to me, I enjoy the different perspective, even if I don't agree. In the end, I may not agree.
Well, I still enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, because I go right back and listen to it again.
I know, but the point that I'm trying to make is, as you can see, just with these 3 blessed bees, that I call them the blessed bees, there's so much to talk about and talk through and discuss and analyze.
Yeah.
That even in all that, we may forget about something so blatantly obvious because we're diving deep and we're going off on tangents.
Another hook I'll give you guys, I want to say there's more to that blessed that we haven't talked about.
Okay.
And when you think, and I'll just give a hint, and we need to remember to pick this up next time so I can explain it, make a note of it. But blessed and salvation have a unique correlation. We'll talk about that next time.
Okay, see, now I don't know this, and I'm curious. And I won't talk to you about it. Okay. We'll talk about it live on the podcast.
There we go.
Okay. So, bye everyone. Thank you, and see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Destiny Awaits. I hope the insights shared today have resonated with you and inspired you to take meaningful steps towards your destiny. Remember, your life is a journey. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and stay committed to living a life that reflects the image and likeness of God. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Destiny Awaits on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube and leave a review. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower and encourage others like you on their path to living their best life. Until next time, keep shining bright and living your destiny. This is Andrea signing off from Destiny Awaits. Take care, and remember, your destiny awaits.